so I went to sea. And that was the next 50 years of my life, near enough ship galleys and resort kitchens from the Caribbean to the Med to the far side of the Pacific. Baking bread in a steel room that rolled under your feet while the whole rest of the world slid past the porthole. I fed people I'd never see again in ports I couldn't spell. That's how one man gets to 43 countries, not on vacation, with flour on his apron and an oven at his back. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it was all a postcard. A wandering life is a fine thing when you're 30 and a lonesome thing when you're 68. You don't put down roots. You don't have a Tuesday that means anything, because every Tuesday you're somewhere else. I had shipmates I loved and 100 goodbyes I never finished. And somewhere in there I got old, the way you do, all at once and without permission. So this isn't a rescue. I want to be plain about that because I think it matters. This is a reckoning. I spent a whole life in motion, and at the end of it I found I was done genuinely, bone deep done with moving. And a man who's seen 43 countries has, whether he likes it or not, an opinion about them. He's got a comparison in his back pocket that most people never get to make. When I finally asked myself the real question, if you could stop anywhere on this earth, old man, and just be, where would it be? I already knew. I'd known for a while and hadn't let myself say it. The answer was here. And the rest of what I want to tell you is why. Not the dream of it, the arithmetic of it, the honest, boring, wonderful arithmetic of an old baker who ran the numbers on the whole world and picked a valley in the north of Thailand to lay his tools down. Let me back up and tell it right. Let me tell you what 50 years at sea does to a man, so you understand the shape of what I was looking for. You get good. That's the first thing. By the middle of it, I could turn out bread that made grown men homesick in a galley the size of a bathroom in a swell that had the pot sliding. I worked the big cruise ships and I worked resort kitchens on the beach when my knees needed a season off the water. Greece, Barbados, a long stretch in Dubai that paid well and tasted of nothing. Australia, Singapore, which I loved, Japan, which I never quite understood but respected the whole time I was there. You learn a place through its flour. Is the truth of it what the local bakers do, what they can't get, what they'd kill for? I've mixed dough on 4 continents and I could tell you the water's different in every one. But here's the other thing it does to you, and nobody warns you. You never stop. The contract ends and there's another contract. The ship docks and it sails. You go home, and I did go home, back to a little place I kept outside Charleston, and inside of 3 weeks the walls start leaning in, and you're on the phone asking who's hiring. I told myself I loved the freedom, and I did. But somewhere past 60 I started to notice that freedom and loneliness were wearing the same coat, and I couldn't always tell which one had walked into the room. I finally hung it up at 70, older than most. Bakers can go long, it's not like hauling nets, but my hands were telling me things and I listened. I came back to West Virginia, to that little house, and I thought, all right, Gerald, this is it, this is the rest. And I sat down in my chair, and I could not sit in it. I don't mean I was miserable. I mean I was restless in my own skin. I'd cross the country in my mind before breakfast. I'd stand at the window looking at the same gray winter hillside I grew up looking at, and I'd think about a market in Penang, or the way the light came off the water in the Aegean, and I'd feel this awful pull, like a compass needle that won't settle. I had a whole world in my head, and a heating bill I resented, and a television I didn't watch. That's a strange kind of poor cash in the bank and not one good reason to get up. The thing that turned it wasn't dramatic. It was a letter, an actual letter, on paper, from a fella named Sal Farrow, who I'd cooked alongside on 2 different ships back in the day, pastry man, Brooklyn mouth, hands like a surgeon. We'd kept up the way old shipmates do, which is to say barely, a card at Christmas. And Sal wrote to tell me he'd gone and retired to a place called Chiang Mai up in the north of Thailand, and that I ought to come see it before I died of West Virginia. He didn't sell it soft either. That was the thing that got me. Sal wasn't a dreamer. He wrote me a page and a half of the plainest talk, what his rent was, what a doctor cost, what drove him crazy, the months the air went bad, and then the last line, which I've still got. He wrote, "Jerry, we spent our whole lives feeding strangers in places we didn't belong. I finally found a place that feels like it might belong back. Come look." Now, I'd been to Thailand once, decades back, a port call in the south when I was young and stupid and off the ship for 2 days. I remembered almost nothing: heat, a golden temple, a bowl of something I ate on a plastic stool that I have chased in my memory for 40 years. But Sal's letter set that old bell ringing, and I did what I'd never let myself do in all those years of wandering, which was to consider stopping. Not visiting, stopping. I want to be honest about how careful I was, because if you're anything like me, you don't trust a thing that sounds too good. I did not sell the house and buy a one-way ticket on a feeling. I am a baker. I don't rush the proof. What I did was sit down at my kitchen table with a legal pad and a cup of coffee and Sal's letter, and I started a list. What do I actually have coming in every month? What would a life there actually cost? What are the catches nobody's mentioning? Where's the trap? And I decided I'd go and look at it with my own 2 eyes before I believed a word of it, mine or Sal's. A scouting trip, 2 weeks. An old man going to kick the tires on the country. I booked it for the following winter when West Virginia was doing its worst and I most wanted to be gone. 75 years old, and I'll tell you, buying that ticket, I felt something I hadn't felt in a decade. Not excitement exactly. More like a needle finally starting to swing toward a direction. Let me tell you what I found when I got there. The heat hits you first. They can tell you, but until that door opens at the Chiang Mai airport and the wet, warm air comes in and wraps around you like a towel out of the dryer, you don't know it. I stepped out at near midnight, and it was still 80-some degrees and thick, and my West Virginia lungs took a second to figure out what to do with it. I stood there on the curb, 75 years old, sweating through a good shirt, and I laughed out loud. "Sal, you son of a gun." He'd found me a little rented room up in a part of town called Santitham, not the fancy part, the real part, where working Thai folks live cheek by jowl with a few old Farang like us. Farang is what they call us, Westerners. Foreigners. You hear it 50 times a day and it stops stinging by the second one. My street was a tangle of noodle carts and motorbikes and a 7-Eleven glowing on the corner like a lighthouse. First morning, jet-lagged to pieces, I walked out at dawn, and there were monks, actual barefoot monks in orange robes, walking a line down the lane with their bowls, and folks kneeling to give them rice. Not a show for tourists. Just Tuesday. I stood against a wall and watched, and something in my chest went quiet that hadn't been quiet in years. Then Sal took me for breakfast, and he ordered me the thing I'd been chasing for 40 years without knowing it, cow soy. A curry noodle soup they do up here in the north and just about nowhere else, soft egg noodles and crispy ones on top, coconut curry, a piece of chicken falling off the bone, lime and pickled greens, and a spoon of chili you add at your own risk. 50 baht. Call it $1.50. I ate it on a plastic stool on a concrete floor with a fan blowing on me, and I had to put the spoon down for a second, because I have cooked in the finest hotels on this planet, and here was a woman at a cart who'd been making this one soup her whole life, and it was perfect, and it cost me the price of nothing. That was the moment the traveler in me sat up. But I didn't let the traveler run the show. I'd brought the legal pad. See, I've watched men make this mistake my whole life, fall in love with a place on a 2-week high, and move there on the feeling and be gone inside a year, broke and bitter. I wasn't going to be that. So every day of that scouting trip, alongside the wonder, I did arithmetic. I walked Warrut Market Cad Luang, the locals call it, through the flowers and the dried fish and the mountains of chilies, and I didn't just gawk, I priced things. A kilo of this, a bag of that. What a real week of groceries runs. I sat with Sal and I made him open his books to me, plain, the way he'd written that letter. What's your rent, Sal? What's a doctor? What's the electric when you run the air conditioning all day? Because I'm going to run it. What does the visa cost you a year? And what's the paperwork? He told me straight, every figure. And here's where the numbers landed, because this is the part that matters more than any temple. Back home, my income is fixed, and it is what it is. Social Security, which I earned honest over a 50-year career, runs me about $1,850 a month, and I've got a small pension out of the hospitality union years on top, another $500 or so. Call it $2,350 a month, give or take. That is my whole world, every month, till they put me in the ground. In West Virginia, that is getting by with your teeth gritted. I ran the Chiang Mai version on that legal pad, careful, and it came out to right around 50,000 baht a month for a good, comfortable life, a little over $1,500 at 33 baht to the dollar, which is about what a dollar buys here. A good life, not a scraping one. I checked that against Sal's real spending, and it held. And I sat there on his balcony with the numbers in front of me and did the last piece of the math, the piece that unknotted something in me. 2,350 coming in, about 1,500 going out for a life that was, honest to God, richer than the one I had back home. That's the better part of $800 a month I would not be spending, not scrimping to find, just not spending. An old baker doesn't get many moments where the arithmetic itself feels like grace. That was one. I flew home after 2 weeks, and I want you to know I did fly home. And I sat in my restless chair through a whole West Virginia spring on purpose, testing whether the feeling would fade. It didn't fade. It sharpened. Let me tell you what I did about it. I am not a man who does anything on the first trip. So I went back for a second one, a longer one, a full month, the following season at 76, and I treated it like a dress rehearsal for the rest of my life. No hotel. I rented an apartment. I lived like I meant it. Because a 2-week honeymoon will lie to you, but a full month with a bad day in it and a bout of the runs and a fight with the air conditioner, that tells you the truth. I found a place back in Santitham, a 1-bedroom on the second floor with a little balcony where the morning light came in 15,000 baht a month, which is about $455. Clean, tiled, a real kitchen, which mattered to me more than it would to most, me being who I am. And then I built the whole budget for real, line by line, the way I'd build a bread order, no guessing. Everything weighed. Rent, 15,000 baht. Electric and water with the air running most of the day, about 3,000. Food. And I ate well cooking at home from the markets and eating out whenever I felt like it. Cow soy and somtam and grilled pork on a stick from the cart call it 13,000 a month, and I never once counted a baht at the table. Getting around, 2,500, because I don't own a thing with wheels. I take the red song thieves, those shared pickup trucks that run like buses, 20 or 30 baht a ride, and a grab car when it rains. Phone and internet, a bit over 1,000. And then the 2 grown-up lines, a careful man doesn't skip money set by every month for my health, about 9,000, and a cushion for everything else, the paperwork and the fun and the odd new shirt, a few thousand more. It came out to right about 50,000 baht a month, a little over $1,500, same as the legal pad said on the first trip, which is how you know the legal pad wasn't dreaming. against 2,350 coming in. It held. It more than held. Now let me talk about the two things that scare people off, because I promised you the honest version, and this is where the honest version earns its keep: the visa and the doctor. The visa first. There's a retirement visa here for folks 50 and up, and there's two roads to it. One's called the OA, and you get it back in the States before you come, and the catch is it makes you carry a Thai-approved health insurance policy, and the amount of coverage they want varies depending on who you ask, so you verify it, and you don't trust any one number a stranger gives you. The other road, the one an old fellow like me is better off taking, and the one Sal took is to come in on a tourist entry and convert it here, in country, to what they call a non-O. Same money test either way. You either park 800,000 baht in a Thai bank that's about $24,000 and let it sit, or you show 65,000 baht a month of income, which is about $1,970. I had the savings from selling the house to do the deposit without it ever being money I needed to live on, so that's the road I took. Then there's a report you go file every 90 days, and a renewal once a year, and a permit you have to remember to get before you leave the country, or your visa's dead when you come back, which is a rookie mistake I made sure not to make. It's a morning of paperwork a few times a year. That's all it is. It is not the wall people imagine. The doctor is the harder talk, and I won't soften it. I'm on Medicare. Like every American my age, I'm 78. I've been on it since 65. That's how it works. But Medicare does not cross the ocean. It does not cover 1 baht of care here in Thailand. A lot of people don't learn that till it's too late, so let it land. Now, Part B, the piece you pay a premium for, $202.90 a month this year. I sat with that a long while. Keep paying it for coverage I can't use over here, just to hold a clean safety net if I ever move back. Or drop it, knowing there's a penalty that grows for every year you're off it, if you ever try to come back on. I'm 78, and I am not moving back. I made the call to drop it deliberately, with that penalty looking me right in the eye. That's a personal bet, and I want you to hear that it is a bet, not a free lunch. As for the big-ticket insurance, the private kind that catches you if something serious happens, I looked hard, and here's the ugly truth of being my age. A new policy at 78 runs $4,500 a year at the very least, and climbing, and half the companies won't write you a new one at all. So I made a hard-eyed choice. I self-pay the routine, which is cheap. A real doctor visit runs $25 to $60, and I keep that health money set aside every month as my own reserve for the rest. Eyes open. It is the one part of this life I'd tell you to weigh the longest and hardest, because it is the real gamble, and anybody who tells you different is selling something. I decided knowing that's all a man can do. I flew home, sold the little house in the spring, and came back for good. Let me tell you about the part that surprised me, which was that the hard part wasn't the money at all. The numbers were the easy part. I want to say that plain, because everybody frets over the money and then gets ambushed by the rest. The money behaved. It was the living that had teeth. Start with the air, because it's the thing Sal warned me about in that first letter, and he was dead right. Along about February, the farmers in the hills and the whole region start burning off their fields, and the smoke settles down into this valley, and it sits. They call it burning season, and it runs into April, and there are mornings you can't see Doi Suthep at all, just a brown haze, and the air quality is genuinely bad enough that an old man with a lifetime of galley smoke in his lungs has got to take it serious. My first burning season, I toughed it out, and I shouldn't have. Now I do what a lot of the old-timers do. I plan for it, keep the good air filter running indoors, and when it gets truly wicked, I take myself down to the coast for a few weeks and let it pass. It's a real cost of living here. not a deal breaker. But if a fellow tells you Chiang Mai is paradise 12 months a year, he's skipping February. I won't skip it for you. Then there's the language, and this is where I have to correct a thing you'll hear. People say, oh, everybody speaks English over there. They do not. Not here, not in the real neighborhoods. English gets you through the airport and the hospital and the tourist streets, and past that you are on your own with one of the hardest languages a Western tongue ever tried to wrap around. It's tonal. The same little word means 5 different things depending on whether your voice goes up or down or sits flat, and I have got a West Virginia drawl that bends every tone the wrong way. I have said things at the market that made grown women laugh into their hands. But here's what I learned, and it's the whole secret, so lean in. You don't have to conquer it. You have to try at it. The day I stopped pointing and grunting and started butchering my few words out loud, Sawasdee crap, that's your hello cop coon crap, that's your thank you, the whole temperature of things changed. A woman at the fruit stand who'd been all business lit right up because the old Farang was making a fool of himself in Thai and doing it with a grin. They don't expect you to be good. They light up that you tried. That's the bridge. It's not fluency. It's effort, offered with a little humility. I won't pretend the first few months weren't lonesome, though. They were. This is the part I'd hide if I were selling you something, so I'm going to say it. There's a particular loneliness to being new and old and foreign all at once. Sal was a godsend, but Sal has his own life, and I'd sit some evenings on that balcony with the noise of the city coming up and feel like a ghost that nobody could see. I had a night, I'll tell it where I was, eating cow soy alone again, and I got to missing my sister back in Charleston so bad I could taste it. And I thought, Gerald, you old fool, you crossed the whole planet to eat soup by yourself. There it was. 76 years old, homesick over a bowl of noodles. Rock bottom, it turns out, tastes of coconut. And I want to be careful here, because this is where the culture asks something of you that Americans aren't always ready for. Thai warmth is real. It is one of the realest things I've ever felt, but it is not the loud, backslapping American kind that adopts you in a week. There's a thing they call kreng jai, which is a kind of considerate holding back, not wanting to impose or make a fuss. So the warmth comes quiet, and it comes slow, and it comes through showing up in the same places over and over until you're not a stranger anymore. If you come expecting to be swept up your first month, you'll feel the cold and quit. The truth is you have to earn it the Thai way by being reliable, by being there, by being decent every single Tuesday until Tuesday means something, which, it turned out, it slowly did. It started with the smallest things. The Songthu driver on my route who started nodding at me like a regular. The Khao Soi woman who, one day, without a word, added the extra chili I liked before I asked. That one just about undid me such a little thing, but if you've been invisible for a stretch, being remembered lands like a hand on your shoulder. And there was the neighbor. Older Thai gentleman across the landing, retired school teacher, a little English left over from a career of it, and for weeks we'd just nodded, kreng jai on both sides, neither of us wanting to impose. Then one evening my air conditioner died in the worst of the heat, and I was out on the landing sweating and swearing at it, and he came out, looked at it, disappeared, and came back with his nephew who fixed it in 10 minutes flat and wouldn't take a baht. After that we were something. He'd knock with a plate of fruit some evenings, mangosteens, rambutan, things I couldn't name, and we'd sit and half talk in his broken English and my broken Thai, and it worked fine. My pen rai, he'd say when I fumbled a word. Never mind, no worries. That's a phrase you hear all day here, and it started to work its way into me, loosening something that 50 years of clenched jaw wandering had wound up tight. Let me tell you how the loose thing turned into a life. Belonging didn't arrive. It accumulated. That's the truest thing I can tell you about the turn. and it's why I keep calling this a careful landing instead of some fireworks. Nothing exploded. It just added up a Tuesday at a time. The way bread rises, you can't watch it happen, but one day it's risen. The routine built it. I'm a baker. I've lived my whole life by a schedule, and I built one here on purpose. Mornings I walk before the heat, up toward the old city, through the Thafé gate where the moat runs, and some mornings on up the mountain road toward Doi Sethep till my knees say enough. There's a Wat I stop at a temple where I've gotten to where I'll sit a while, not being anything in particular, just an old man on a bench while the monks go about it. I'm no Buddhist, but there's a peace those grounds hold that a cold country Baptist can borrow without stealing. Then there's my people, because you do find them. Sundays I go to the walking street market that runs right down Ratchadamnon in the old city miles of it. Food and crafts and somebody always playing music, and there's a coffee place over in the Niman area, the trendy end of town, where a handful of us old Farang have washed up and made a habit of each other. A retired school teacher from Oregon, a Dutch fella who fixes motorbikes for the love of it. Sal, of course. We are not a young or a beautiful crowd, but we are a crowd. And we look out for one another, which at my age is worth more than beautiful. The other thing that welded me in was the cooking. Of course it was. A woman named Kun Pensri runs the food cart at the end of my soy som tam, grilled pork, sticky rice, and I'd been eating there so regular that one slow afternoon I asked, in my broke-down Thai and a lot of pointing, if she'd show me how she did her chili paste. She looked at me like I'd lost my mind, this old Farang wanting to learn, and then she laughed and waved me around behind the cart. Now, a couple mornings a week I help her prep, no money in it, just my hands wanting to be useful the way they've always wanted. 50 years feeding strangers, and here I am back at it on a plastic stool, learning a mortar and pestle from a woman half my size who could outcook the whole hotel line I ever ran. That's not a vacation. That's a life. I did try to give something back the way a baker would. One morning I brought Pensri a batch of proper rolls, real bread, which is a rare bird up here, and she and her sister and two of the regulars stood around the cart tearing into them, and Pensri got this look and said something fast to her sister I didn't catch, and they both laughed and pressed a hand to their chest, that little bow they do. I asked Sal later what she'd said. He told me it came out to something like, the old Farang isn't just eating our food, he's feeding us back now. I had to look off down the soy for a minute after that. 50 years I've fed people who'd sailed out of my life by morning. To feed the same folks twice, folks who'd still be there tomorrow, I didn't have a word for how much that was worth. There isn't one. I need to tell you about my niece, too, because family is the part everybody wants to know about. I never married the seesaw to that, so it's my younger sister back in Charleston and her girl, my niece, Carol Ann. When I told them I was doing this for good, my sister took it about how you'd expect. Quiet on the phone. That word, quiet. And Carol Ann said it straight out, Uncle Gerald, you're 76 years old. You can't be over there alone if something happens. And she wasn't wrong to say it. It's the fair question. So she came, flew all the way over last year, suspicious as a cat, ready to talk me home, and I just showed her the ordinary days. Took her for cow soy, walked her through Warrot Market in the morning crush. Sat her down at Kun Pensri's cart and let Pensri fuss over her. Took her up Doi Suthep at dawn when the haze was down and you could see the whole valley laid out gold. And about day 4 she got quiet in a different way and she said, Okay, I get it now. I don't like how far it is, but I get it. That was enough. We don't have to like the distance. We just have to understand each other across it. And a video call every Sunday keeps us honest. And I'll speak to the doctor part again, because it belongs in the belonging, not just the budget. I've had to use the hospitals here now, nothing dramatic. An old man's tune-ups, the blood pressure, a bad tooth, a skin thing they burned off. I go to Chiang Mai Ram, which is a proper private hospital, clean and modern and quick. And there's Bangkok Hospital, Chiang Mai and Lana too if I need 'em. And the big Bangkok hospitals down south for anything truly serious. A visit runs me that $25 to $60 I told you about, and I pay it out of pocket without flinching. And the care has been as good as anything I ever got in the States, and a great deal kinder about it. I hold my breath about the big ticket someday. I told you that's my one real gamble, but the day-to-day of getting old here is honestly easier than it was back home. Let me tell you where all this leaves me. Now, at 78. So here I am, 78 years old, in a one-bedroom in Santitham, with a passport full of stamps up on the shelf and a mortar and pestle down in the kitchen that gets more use than the passport ever will now. Let me try to say the thing I've been circling this whole time. Why here? Why, of 43 countries, this valley, this soup, this life? It isn't the money, though the money is what makes it possible, and I'll never pretend otherwise. $1,500 a month for a life that's fuller than my $2,300 a month life back home ever was. That's not nothing. That's the ground the whole thing stands on. But money was never the ache. If it were only about cheap, there's cheaper places than Chiang Mai, and I've been to most of them. Here's the real answer, and it took me 43 countries to be able to say it plain. I spent 50 years being a visitor, 50 years of being the man who feeds people and then sails, the Farang who's charming for 2 weeks and then gone, a life measured in ports and goodbyes. And what I was starving for, without the sense to name it, was to be a regular. To have one woman at one cart put my chili in before I ask. To have a driver nod. To have a Tuesday that's mine. Everywhere else on this earth I was passing through. Here, somehow, they let me stop passing through. And a place that lets a lifelong stranger finally belong quiet and slow. And on its own terms, that's not a place you find twice. When I finally got to compare the whole wide world, that turned out to be the only thing on the scale that weighed anything. And I did compare it, honest, because a man with 43 stamps owes himself that much. Singapore I loved, but Singapore cost like a king and never quite thawed to me. Dubai paid the best and felt like a shopping mall built in an oven. The Med was beautiful, and it knew it, and beautiful places that know it are expensive and a little cold. There were islands in the Caribbean that could break your heart at sunset and then break your wallet by morning, and where an old foreign fellow is always just a tourist with a longer stay. I ran the same 3 questions on every one of them, sitting on that balcony with my legal pad. Can I afford to be old here? Will they let me belong here? And can I be useful here? And this scruffy, smoky, generous valley in the north of Thailand was the only place on the list that came back yes on all 3. Not the prettiest, not the cheapest. The only one that said yes to the whole question. I'll give you one ordinary Tuesday, because it's the Tuesdays that tell the truth, not the postcards. Not long ago I walked up to the Wat before the heat, sat my hour on the bench while the monks swept the grounds. Came down through the old city, got my cow soy, extra chili already in it, no words needed. Rode a red song through back with a grandmother and a crate of live chickens for company. Helped Coon Pensary pound chili paste for an hour and got told my technique was improving, which from her is a knighthood. Called Carol Ann when the sun went down her way. Nothing happened. That's the point. A whole day where nothing happened, and I belonged to every minute of it. I went 50 years in 43 countries without one of those. Now I have got them by the calendar full. I won't tie a bow on it. There are trade-offs, and I'd be lying to leave them out. The distance is real. My sister's getting on, and an ocean is an ocean, and I feel every mile of it when the phone rings at a strange hour. The burning season is real every February, and I plan my life around a few brown months. And that healthcare gamble is real, and it sits in the back of my mind the way a small debt does. I made my peace with it, eyes open, but I won't insult you by pretending it's nothing. This is not paradise. I've been to the places people call paradise. This is better than paradise. This is a home I chose on purpose, with all its warts, after seeing the alternatives and choosing a thing, all the way, warts and all, is about the most peaceful feeling an old man ever gets to have. My daddy told me to learn to do something with my hands a man would always need done, and to do it somewhere the coal dust couldn't reach. I did the first part for 50 years all over the world. It took me till 76 to do the second part, and I did it in a valley in the north of Thailand, and I only wish I hadn't been so afraid of stopping that I made myself wait. If there's one thing I'd hand you, it's that. Don't be so proud of your motion that you forget you're allowed to land. That's my story. That's why I choose here, and why I'll keep choosing it every morning I've got left. Before I let you go, one last thing, and then I'll leave you be. If any of this stirred something in you, if you've got that same restless needle I had, wondering whether a life like this could ever pencil out for somebody like you, there's a free tool down in the description that's worth your time. The Honest Thailand Retirement Starter Kit, they call it. I didn't make it, and I'm not selling you a thing, so hear me clean on that. It's just a straight self-check that's as willing to talk you out of this as into it, and a little worksheet where you run your own real numbers, city by city, the honest way I ran mine on that legal pad. Costs you nothing, and if it tells you to stay right where you are, well, that's an honest answer too, and worth knowing. That's all I've got for you. Go easy on yourself. And don't wait as long as I did to sit down.